On the 2nd of July, it will be 80 years since the sinking of the Arandora Star, carrying Italian and German internees and a small number of prisoners of war to Canada. Of the 1,673 men aboard, there were only 868 survivors. The eyewitness, Norman Price, one of the guards, said later, "I could only see hundreds of men clinging to the ship. They were like ants, and then the ship went up at one end and slid rapidly down, taking the men with her. Many men had broken their necks jumping or diving in the water. Others injured themselves by landing on drifting wreckage and floating debris near the sinking ship. The majority of these men were middle-aged cafe owners, restaurant owners, caterers, storekeepers, waiters. The Italian community centred on Saffron Hill was especially hard hit. Well, why were they on board? Should they have been? After all, their only offence was to have lived in the United Kingdom for many years and not to have taken out British citizenship. They had been rounded up, put into camps, and were then, in many cases, deported to Canada or Australia, or in others, interned on the Isle of Man. Now, to understand why this happened, we need to look back to the situation in May and June 1940. After the fall of the Low Countries and the deliverance of Dunkirk, there were fears of an imminent invasion. People saw fifth columnists everywhere. And indeed, there was a great fear of parachuting nuns. German paratroopers dressed as nuns. Implausible, but it played on fears of foreigners and also an inherent Protestant fear of the Roman Catholic Church. On the 10th of June, Italy declared war. Suddenly, even long-standing residents of the United Kingdom, who just happened to be of Italian birth, were now objects of suspicion, enemy aliens. How justified was this? Well, in the 1930s, there had been a conscious attempt by the Italian fascist government to control Italian organisations overseas. And there were such organisations set up as the Fascio di Londra, though some commentators dismissed it as nothing more than the equivalent of the British Society in a South American capital. Well, things were not good. To emphasise their Britishness, many Italian business owners put up signs saying British run. For example, the Spaghetti House put up signs describing itself as a British restaurant. The Italian Hospital put up signs saying under British management. There had been attempts by the Italian government to control it before the war, which were rebuffed. But all of this was to no avail. Even the popular Lancashire-born singer Gracie Fields fell foul of the regulations through her marriage to the Italian film director Monty Banks. And indeed, she lost her British passport and was vilified for going to Canada to raise money for the war effort. When she returned to Britain or went on overseas concert tours for British troops, she was given a temporary British passport. But after the war, this too was revoked. So, if it could happen to such a celebrity as Gracie Fields, well, what hope was there for the ordinary British Italian? The internees were arrested, often without any warning, taken to a police station and then sent to camps, such as the one on Lingfield Racecourse, another at Wharf Mills Bury, and a newly built housing estate at Huyton, Liverpool. Now, it was true that some of these internees actually were fascists, but many of them were not. One of the victims of the Arandora Star, when his body was found, it contained a membership card for his local bowling club, someone who was very much part of his community. Lord Snell, who headed and chaired the Arandora Star Inquiry Committee, said he didn't at all find the method of selecting dangerous Italians to be at all satisfactory. However, he did accept that under the conditions prevailing at the time, it was important that the work of deporting aliens should proceed without any delay. But definitely there was a lack of discrimination between ardent fascists and nominal members of the Italian fascist organisations in Britain, and also of completely apolitical, hard-working, assimilated members of the community. Among the deportees was Deccio Anzani. He was the secretary of the British section of the League of the Rights of Man. And he had been placed on the MI5 list of dangerous enemy aliens by mistake. Obviously, he wasn't a fascist. The most dangerous, though, of these aliens, at least according to MI5, were chosen to be sent off to Canada and Australia. Now, at the time, it could have been thought that they were the lucky ones. They were escaping imminent invasion. But the journey there was always going to be risky in wartime. What we shouldn't forget is the number of ships carrying evacuee children from Britain to Canada that were sunk. For example, the SS Benares, where 77 children drowned after the ship was sunk in September 1940. The evacuation scheme, I should say, quickly closed after that. Well, the Arandora Star set sail from Liverpool in the early hours of Monday, the 1st of July. It hadn't got very far across the Atlantic when at about 6:15 in the morning of Tuesday, the 2nd of July, it was struck by torpedoes from a U-boat commanded by Gunter Prien, a well-known hero of the German Kriegsmarine. Well, it must have been pandemonium on board that ship. The elder and more infirm internees were unable to get past the barbed wire barricades, obstructing the decks of what had once been a luxury liner cruise ship for only 354 passengers. Just compare that to the number of internees who were packed aboard it indiscriminately. And later, the popular press recorded tales of the Italian panic and selfishness of some of the internees fighting with each other as the ship went down. Basically, they were playing up to nationalist stereotypes and of how they thought Italians and Germans would behave. In actual fact, there is no evidence of that at all. But when has the truth stopped the popular press from retailing its lies and distortions of the truth? In fact, there were many cases of heroism and self-sacrifice. The Rossi brothers from Newport clung together for 8 hours in the sea, in the cold sea. But when they were picked up, 32-year-old Luigi was found to be dead, still in the arms of his 17-year-old brother Giuseppe. Guido Conti, a 32-year-old from Newport, a native of Bardi in Italy, clung to a wooden plank. However, when he saw a friend who he knew was not such a strong swimmer as he was, he willingly offered the plank to his friend. Guido Conti died. Tragically, he had only learnt of the birth of his son the day before the Arandora Star sailed. Well, survivors were picked up by HMCS Saint Laurent, a Canadian ship. Many of them were in a very poor condition. They'd lost everything they had, apart from their lives. Many were injured. However, the fate of the fitter of the survivors was not a good one. Many of them were deported a few weeks later, on the 10th of July, to Canada, having first been robbed of all their remaining possessions. They were locked up, they were confined on a ship, a matter of weeks after they had almost lost their lives on one. And for many of them, during their 2 months voyage, there was a fear of another shipwreck, of another sinking. Their treatment didn't go unnoticed. One of the guards who was loading these survivors onto the Dunedin happened to be the son of an MP. And this man, Merlin Scott, later commented to his father, "I thought the Italian survivors were treated badly, and now they've all been sent to sea again." It isn't an edifying tale. We can understand what happened in the context of 1940. I'm sure it would happen again. But most of these men were innocent of anything. It was a needless sacrifice of their lives. The panic had been on the part of the British government, and I should say of the British public. Well, in August 1940, the MP Victor Cazalet commented, "I shall not feel happy either as an Englishman or as a supporter of this government that this bespattered page of our history has been cleared up and rewritten." So, until there was an explanation of what had happened and some sort of official apology, Cazalet would feel eternally ashamed. Well, that apology never came. And it does remain a bespattered page of our history. There are monuments all over the country to the victims of the Arandora Star. One major one is in the Italian church, Clerkenwell Road, London. 5 years ago, I was privileged on the 75th anniversary of the sinking to give a talk at Holborn Archives on the sinking of the Arandora Star. It was a difficult task. There were family and descendants of the victims there. For them, it was still an open wound. But we needed to understand just what had happened and to try and explain it all. So it wasn't an enviable task for me, but it was a privilege to do so on that anniversary. That was 5 years ago. And today, there's still no excuse to forget the infamous case of the Arandora Star and to commemorate the victims of its sinking, innocent men who lost their lives for nothing.